Section 4, where we are going to analyze resources. I've split this into two different discussions because I want you to consider the paper all by itself. But our discussion is very much a part of that paper. We're going to use the material we gather here and explore here to funnel into our paper and start that process. So remember, this isn't just picking a general topic. We're looking at our paper topic already for this particular session. So we want to effectively use everything we find. As we're already talking about, there's a lot of information out there. There are a lot of different things to explore and understand. And part of that is that we have to be savvy consumers, but we also want to make sure that we are finding out how to trust people. We simply cannot know everything. And so we need to make sure that we are reaching out to subject matter experts and using them. So, this activity, this idea of gathering two resources that directly relate to the topic you're researching for your paper is the opportunity to say, I'm going to pick two things that are going to work into my paper. I don't know right at the start if they're going to be great or they're going to be terrible or somewhere in the middle, but we're grabbing two things. We're saying, I'm going to use these and I'm going to use my discussion as the opportunity to share them. And if you give me that link to them, I can help you set up um, your APA reference and help you with citations. And then you're getting that feedback as you explore them and as you talk to all of us. So remember, your topic, your resources, and that way we can keep them in line for your paper. So the discussion, the point of this exercise is to help you do three things in relation to writing from sources. First, we want to look at how does evaluating the source's intended audience help us understand the original purpose of the source. And you're going to find there are a lot of things to do with that purpose and that audience. And we want to look at reliability. What might we gather about the reliability of a source based on the qualifications of its author? And finally, why is it important to consider the publication date? There are lots of different reasons for these ideas being important and lots more questions that we're going to explore in this discussion. So I want you to just be ready to explore and to learn and to see what you are already recognizing and what you're already on track with. There are those little red flags that come up for all of us. And I think more often than not that you're seeing those and you just don't necessarily have what we're going to talk about, the language to articulate what those red flags are and why it sort of gives you that funny feeling on some resources. So I want you to revise again chapter 6 of your textbook, How to Evaluate Sources. We've talked about reading it, we've looked at it as the reading for this session, but I want you to think about it first as a path into doing this assignment and then doing the paper, and then I want you to review it again because I want you to have that practice and that insight, and so that when you look at it that second time, you are putting those into practice and you're starting to say, that didn't hit me the first time. I didn't recognize that as a really important thing. But now after you've done research, after you've used some resources, it's going to click. So we have these three ideas. We're looking at purpose, we're looking at reliability, and we're looking at the date. So what I want you to do is to take this as a series of steps. So I want you to find two sources that support your topic. So they can be from the library databases, they could be from internet resources. Again, it's not about whether they're good or bad. Some of them, we're going to go through all these steps and then you're going to say, well, this is sort of a terrible resource. That's great because we're figuring out what those signals are. Some of you are going to get great ones. That's awesome too. Hopefully we all get great ones, but the bad ones are also good because they help us see exactly what sort of red flags there are. We want to evaluate those sources and we want to share them with everyone on our discussion thread. Remember, we're using these for our paper. Our paper needs 2 minimum and 4 maximum resources. So this is a great opportunity to get support from me, get support from your classmates as you review them. Don't forget to give me those links. So some of the questions that we have in our reading for this week are looking at things like the audience and who's the author, what's the purpose of this publication, this website. We're looking at all these details about sources. So these are ways to get started. We don't have to cover all of them. We don't have to use all of them. You'll often find that having some questions is good because a question will work really well for a couple of resources and really help you zoom in on what is useful about it. And then you'll find that that same question isn't useful later. That's how it's going to go. You need to have a good stack of tools to apply to all the possible ones that you see. So I want to give you some tips on searching. A lot of times we do a closed-end search. We also ask closed-ended questions. That's where someone will answer yes or no. We don't want that. We don't want to search the concept because. where we start to put in that closed portion, we just want to search for those concepts. So some basic ideas, things like we may want to look at something like disability access. Once we start putting in something like, well, why do the disabled not have access to this particular location? Then everything is going to sort of focus in too tightly, and we may not get all the possible information we want about that location. We want to look at things like uses of psychology, or what is or how is it used, versus something like why is therapy great, or why is psychoanalysis terrible. Because once we start adding great and terrible, good, bad, again, it's closed. And so you're going to get people who have that particular response, and we're going to rule out everyone else. So we really want to have those open spaces. Website types. There are rules for acquiring certain types of websites. So if you have a .gov for government, .org for an organization, .edu for education, there are rules that's going to help us overall. Just because there are rules doesn't mean someone doesn't break it. So someone doesn't apply it very loosely, but it is a good head start. Anyone absolutely can acquire a .com or a .net. So that's commercial or internet. And so anything that's out there could be under that. Again, it could be great. Something like medium.com. It's a really interesting website. They're using it as more of a commercial site. It's still got great articles. We just want to use those as sort of like little supports right now. If you can have those little supports, it's going to help you get stronger sources right away instead of sort of navigating through everything right away. Be careful with anonymous. So it can be great. People can have really important reasons for why they're not putting their name behind something. But we need to know what those are. When we believe in what we say, we are willing to put our name, our face, our reputation behind it. And if an author's not doing that, we need to ask questions. Again, those questions could have very valid, good answers, but we need to ask them, and we need to know why. When someone isn't being forthright about who they are, or when they start to show us that they have a lot of information for one area, but they are talking to us about another, we need to say, well, if you have all of this support, if you have education and experience in area A, but you're trying to teach me area B, what's going on with that? Why do you feel that you are professional in that area? We have questions to ask. It doesn't mean that's a bad thing. We just need to ask them. Again, we're not looking for negatives. We're just looking for an overall understanding. So some things to do. Look for tone. How is the author representing or connecting with other viewpoints? Is it dismissive? Is it silly? Is it ironic? Is it sarcastic? We're just looking for all these things so that we know how to be aware, savvy consumers. We want to look at the resources. Are there links to references? Is the author noting or commenting on how he or she obtained information? If I'm telling you about something about writing, I'm going to say things like, I want you to look at the Bedford Handbook. I want you to look at Pocket Keys for Writers. I want you to be on the Purdue OWL. If you really want to focus on your writing, I want you to get Strunk and White's Elements of Style. These are all things that are going to support you, and then they also let you have a window into where I've gained some of my supports. And that way you also know, are those good? Are those great? Are those sort of bad? And that gives you sort of a groundwork. Look for that professionalism. Is the website difficult to navigate? Is there a search bar within the website so that you can search only in that website? Again, this doesn't mean that a site without these things is terrible, or a site with them is absolutely spot on and perfect. But these are little indicators of professionalism, of resources, of tone, of approach. They give us a means to evaluate and to start asking questions. And generally speaking, we're going to find that having this information is going to hold true. So finding that professional site, there's a layer of professionalism that's important depending on how we want to use that information. So be ready, be open, start asking and exploring. We're going to analyze, we're going to ask hard questions. Look for those good and bad sites. We want all of them this time because they are all useful in our pursuit of understanding what's out there. And again, use this for your paper. You should have 2 resources in your discussion so that you're ready for your paper. You could add a couple more, but you are good to go if you have these 2 from the paper.